Mahilig ka ba sa mga stories and minsan naririnig mo rin yung mga stories kapag merong nagpi-pitch sa'yo na binebenta? Bakit nga ba mabenta sa atin 'no, yung mga stories na 'yan, yung mga kuwento na, "Uy, alam mo ba ganito?" Yan ang i-di-discuss natin ngayon dito sa Truly Happy Juan. Hello po, ako po si Eric Calugdan. Together with us is Sir Enrico Garcia. I used to be an IT consultant for Unisys and then put up my own business called Infotex. No, we are a web and mobile apps developer. We help SMEs in their digital strategies para mas maging efficient, no, mas maging productive sila and mag-thrive dito sa bagong economy natin. Sir Enrico, on the other hand, used to be the retail operations manager of Shell. And then after Shell, he became the country manager of Herbalife. After Herbalife, he became the director of operations of Avon and one of the board of directors of the Direct Selling Association of the Philippines. Now, he is a mindset coach and also the director for international operations of Sante. Again, welcome to Truly Happy One, where we discuss world-class Pinoy excellence. Para tayo din maging world-class. We do this every Saturdays at 5 p.m. via Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And before we go to our main topic, please make sure you let us know where you're watching from. Type nyo lang dyan sa comment section sa baba ng Facebook or dyan sa side ng YouTube. Merong chat dyan. Type nyo lang watching from Manila or watching from Dubai, no? Kung saan kayo galing para alam natin kung hanggang saan umaabot ang ating broadcast. If you have questions, no, please type it in, feedback, no, type nyo na rin. And huwag na rin kayo mahiya, paki-like na rin siya, comment, and tag nyo yung friends nyo na sa tingin nyo makakatulong itong video natin today. And para wala kayong ma-miss na mga episodes natin sa mga susunod pang mga linggo, make sure you subscribe no, sa ating YouTube channel. Merong subscribe button dyan na kulay red. It's free, walang bayad po yan. Or kung nasa Facebook man kayo, meron tayong Facebook group na Truly Happy One. And yung link papunta doon nasa description nitong video sa pinaka-dulo. Okay, so ang topic natin today is why stories sell. So bakit nga ba, Sir Enrico?
Yeah, and yan yung atin tatalakayin dito kasi apparently hindi lang pala story, 'di ba? Hindi ang yung may kasabihan ng mga Pinoy, storytelling ala, hindi 'yon. Apparently, there's an author that actually wrote he studied it. Kasi sabi niya, bakit nga ba napaka-effective lalo yung mga TED, 'di ba, yung mga presenters, no? Why are they so compelling and they make such a huge impact and connection with their audience? And when he studied, when I say studied, he really broke down. There were common things among the one of the among those great presenters, and that's what we'll briefly show. No, we'll attempt to show it very quickly kasi malaki yung topic. Pero ito yung mga key points, di ba? And having said that, let's start with the story, di ba?
Okay, sige sir. Yan, first
Okay,
slide.
yeah. So, I always ask, when I present this, I say, what is that? And, iba-iba yung sagot. But in the interest of time, this is a bookmark, okay? Bookmark. Now, why is this a story? Kasi normally when I travel on business, I have a book which I keep in the hotel. And this happened in Jakarta, I believe in 2018. I'm going to show you na lang the live book with the bookmark. And what happened here, Eric, is that there's the bookmark,
Wow.
and
Mhm.
then there's a note. I don't know, sorry, parang hindi makita.
Yan, yan.
So sinulatan ako nung nag-aayos nung room, and he said in his broken English that he put a bookmark so that it will be easier for me to locate the page. So, if you could put the slide back up, Eric. When I entered the room, nagulat ako. And I said, wow, I've never experienced this, that someone would actually, So anyway, pinatawag ko siya, long story short. I said, why did you do that? Sabi niya, sir, because here in our hotel, Marriott, no, we are trained to really anticipate and really do things that will, make a very talagang delightful experience with our customers. I said, well, you just did. So anyway, I called the manager. I called him, this guy who did it. I had a picture. I just didn't post it here anymore. But see, this is 2018 and I'm talking about it today. And because I use this presentation to tell people, if you want to understand what excellent customer service is, this. I don't need to come out with a PowerPoint to tell you, oh, it's delighting them beyond their expectation. Everybody remembers this. Like you, Eric, and our audience will remember this simple story.
Correct.
Why nga ba? Let's go to the next slides.
Okay.
Okay. These are, you can check this out. Go to significant object. So as you can see, these two gentlemen, they wanted to find out how effective nga ba? Can you objectively measure a subjective thing? And this is
Mhm.
what they found out. See, they were on any given object, subjective value can be measured objectively. What they did is they bought like yung mga abubot, as we call it in Tagalog, no?
Mhm.
From eBay, about 100 pieces, and on average 125. Now, when they infuse stories into those objects, the total value of that over $100 sold for nearly $8,000.
Wow.
Yeah, on average. So
Mhm.
can you imagine that, Eric? So let's take a look.
Kung ano yung mga items.
Yeah, one of them was
Yeah.
this pink horse. Okay,
Uh-huh.
siguro ito basura lang ito, but look at the price. Where it was purchased, original price was $1. Okay, but when it was infused with a story, they got people who really write stories, and when they infused the story, it actually sold for $104.
More than 100 times. Grabe.
Yes, yes. All of a sudden it commands a value, an attachment, and that's the key word, the attachment. Okay, so objectively you can put a price, di ba, on a subjective di ba,
Mhm.
the object, di ba, subjective yung story, but you can
Mhm.
quantify it objectively, yung impact ng story. Okay, so next, yeah, bakit nga ba? And this is the science behind it. Apparently, when a story is told, whether ikaw nagkikwento or ikaw nakikinig, more parts of your brain are engaged. I'm not going to go through, the scientific terms, but practically all of your brain. You're it's like you watching a movie or, a documentary, Eric, and you're so into it, di ba? Because
Mhm.
most parts of your brain and all those senses, the emotions, everything is being engaged. Okay.
Mhm.
In fact, an associate professor in Princeton, si Yuri Hansen, he wanted to check, ano, totoo ba to na na-engage yung brain? So next slide, I'll show you.
Mhm.
So what he did was he got subjects, okay? Sorry, not this one. But anyway, sige, hold it there.
Ito?
Yan, oo.
Okay. Okay.
What happened is he put electrodes to measure the brain activity and which parts of the brain. And ang nangyari is the one telling the story and the one listening, two things happen. Number one, the same parts of the brain were engaged. Number two, more parts of the brain were engaged. Yung parang yung previous slide natin kanina, di
Mhm.
ba? So practically, the whole brain is firing and working. And that's
Mhm.
why ang tawag na dito is coupling. In other words, nagsisync. In fact, he tried to test this. Sabi niya, kung totoo to, paano kaya kung, sige nga, ginawa niya, what he did was, he told the storyteller to speak in a language that the listener could not understand. Of
Mhm.
course, since you don't understand the language, the brain activity, of course, decreased significantly
Uh-huh.
because the person listening could not understand. It was a different
Correct.
language. So the point being made is that when it is not engaging, when the moment you do maybe some boring presentations where there's too much
Oo.
statistics, wala na, di ba? I mean, you
Hmm.
don't need electrodes. You just look at the body language of the crowd. Eric, we've done live presentations. You know
Correct,
when they're
correct.
engaged and you know when they're
Yes.
not, right? So
Uh-huh.
next,
Next.
yan. Yan lang yung parts. Yung dopamine, that's the feel good. It's a feel good hormone, di ba? When that gets released, and when stories are told effectively and with sincerity and in a very compelling manner, look at what happens. In fact, the listener starts to relate to the story, especially if it is also similar to his or her story.
Oo. Sa
Nagko-connect.
situation nila na
Correct.
nami-mirror nila,
Co-
relatable kumbaga.
Correct. Correct. And
Uh-huh.
that's why they remember with greater detail, more than a PowerPoint presentation. More. So what are we really saying here? Well, alam na natin that facts tell but stories sell.
Story said.
So
Yes.
I want to put it this way because I actually do a workshop on this. See, stories are just another way of how we communicate. So if you start using different stories to communicate an idea or an advocacy or a perspective or a point of view, you become more effective. Okay? So it is a way of communicating. So you see, I just started off by communicating how excellent customer service is. If I wanted to communicate, this is how we should treat our customers, I just tell that story.
Correct.
You remember the details, right, Eric?
Mhm, mhm.
You remember, right? That simple
Yes.
bookmark. See, because that hits home. Okay, next slide.
Sige, next time.
So, really, what happens is when there's storytelling for both, the one giving the story and the one listening,
Mhm,
it's really one, connected talaga.
mhm,
So, what we should do in our business, in our career, in our profession, is learn to use stories to communicate. Okay?
hmm,
Now, we don't really have much time. This is a whole workshop that I do. But
mhm,
so, how do I use that? Well, you can use stories to inspire, you can use stories to educate, you can use stories, educate like I just did, di ba? At the same time, it
mhm,
inspires. You can also use stories to simplify, right?
mhm.
Something that's so complex, like in your field, di ba? I think people would understand more. Si Steve Jobs is very good at this. Paano mo nga naman i-communicate yung ilang gig? So what did he do? If you remember, di ba? 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Music, yeah. So, number of songs, number of images, yung mga
In
gano'n
your
yung ginamit
pocket.
niya.
Right.
Correct.
So he was already using this, di ba?
Mhm,
So, kasi nga, paano mo i-communicate yun? Sino makaintindi ng ilang gig? I mean, oh, okay, so big deal.
mm. Correct.
But he found a way to educate, to simplify. 1,000 songs in your pocket. Wow. Okay. I don't need to know how many gig. I just know there are 1,000 songs, right?
Correct, correct. Galing.
So, yun
Next
yung
slide.
sinasabi natin. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
reason it's powerful because ito yung elements which Aristotle thousands of years ago was saying. When you persuade or try to convince people to see your point, there are basically three elements that you need to use. Number one is ethos. Sino ka ba? Ano yung credibility mo? Ano yung K mo para magkwento or magsalita?
Kaya merong
Credentials.
intro sa umpisa.
Correct.
Oo,
Credentials.
correct.
What you've done, what you currently are doing, that helps, di ba? And then the logos is simply the statistics, the figures, that support what you're trying to convey to them or, communicate to them.
Yung
Di
parang
ba?
facts, data,
Yeah.
surveys, yung mga
A
gano'n, mga
little.
numbers.
Kailangan meron din nun. Di ba?
Mhm,
Kasi
mhm,
para, nga, that's the rational part of the brain. Di ba?
mhm.
Now, yung pathos, yung 65%, ito yung emotional impact. Ito yung talagang creates that, it compels them, di ba? Through the use of stories, di ba? Kasi people respond, di ba? And connect nga because of the emotion, especially if it's emotionally charged. Like a powerful movie, di ba? Minsan, iiyak pa tayo when it's done so well. Tapos inis na inis ka dun sa actor, ang galing. He put the character to life, di ba? Kung kontrabida or ano, that's how powerful it is. That you actually feel so enraged or, so mad, di ba? So that's because they make that connection with you. So when you use
Galing.
all three, Eric, when you use all three,
Mhm,
wow, it's a winning formula. So long story short, di ba? Make sure that you use these three.
mhm,
Credibility, eto, sino ka, quick lang. And if you
mhm,
see 10%, so kung 1 hour, so let's say 1 hour lang ang oras mo,
mhm.
10% of the time or 6 minutes lang yung ano mo, credentials.
Intro. Oo, yung
Oo.
credentials.
Eh
Correct,
kung
correct.
minsan 15 minutes na credentials pa lang,
Hindi pa
'di
tapos
ba?
sa intro pa lang. Oo.
Correct. And then
Correct.
25% of 60, Eric, that would be what? 15, di ba?
15 minutes, yes, 15
15
minutes.
minutes, you can, hindi naman ibig sabihin credibility tapos 15 minutes max para may
Mhm.
guideline ka lang na you use data. The
Correct, correct.
bulk, the bulk of it 21, so that's what 21, so ilan,
39. 39
39,
minutes.
39
Yeah.
minutes is the stories, the things that will connect with them.
Which is yun
So
yung ginagawa natin dati sa ating mga
exactly,
presentations.
exactly,
Correct,
Eric,
correct.
and that's why it's
Yeah.
so powerful. So yan,
And
of
very effective. Correct.
Of course, marami pa yan. I mean, you really need, it's a whole, ano, but we just kind of gave you the reason, the science. There is pala, di ba? Science why stories sell. In fact, si Richard Branson, oh, stories to him can really change the world. And here, Eric, this is in your line. Go to SAP and type in CSO. Can you do that, Eric?
CSO.
Charlie Sierra
Okay.
Oscar. SAP
Okay.
CSO. Tell me what you find.
Okay. Chief
SAP,
Security Officer
no, no. Chief
or
Storytelling Officer.
oh, meron
SAP.
ng ganong meron ng ganong
Yes.
position.
SAP.
Aha.
You look for it. Sabi mo, Chief Storytelling Officer, SAP. Makikita mo.
Chief
Telling,
Storyteller.
Storyteller
Ah,
Officer. Yeah,
Chief Storyteller. Eric Carino yung pangalan.
there you go.
Galing.
SAP, ha? Software
Oo.
company. Tama ba ako, Eric?
Yeah.
Software, yeah?
Correct. Yes, yes.
So
Malaki yan
that,
na software
ooh,
company.
so that's how important it is to a very technical, ano, lalo na technical. How do you communicate, di ba?
Yeah.
Tera, oh my
So, you
goodness.
communicate via storytelling.
Correct.
Tama, tama.
Correct. Sige,
Galing.
baka may questions ka, Eric.
Yes, hello muna sa ating mga viewers. Ayan, si Sharon Kalugdan and Edith Kalugdan watching po sa atin.
Oh,
Si
thank you, thank you.
Thank you po for
Yes.
watching. Yes. And sa ating ibang mga viewers, if you have questions, type nyo lang dyan sa chat sa Facebook or sa comment section sa baba. So, ang question, sir, is, yeah, very successful nga itong storytelling, no? And at ano yung magiging application nito kapag, let's say, meron akong maliit na business, like, nagbebenta ko online, no? Paano ko siya magagamit?
Number one, you can talk, so good point. Anong kikwento ko? Di ba? What stories do I tell? Number one, your own story. Balikan mo yung naging journey mo. How you put up your business. Di ba? That's a story you can tell. Or the second is stories of other people that you know. For example, di ba? Si Manny Pacquiao, how he rose to fame, di ba? Of course, you have to relate the story to ano yung topic mo. Di ba? In fact, yung topic natin next week is a story of a Nepalese guy who, wow, I don't want to get ahead, but people told him he was crazy, but he achieved it. So if I want to talk about, so it's his story, it's not mine, but it's his life story, right? Or I can use stories of brands or products or services that succeeded or failed. So those are the three things you can use and should use in combination. Your story, other people's stories, stories of brands or products.
Okay, and ang ating next section is yan, what are your takeaways? Yan. So if you have your takeaways, type nyo dyan sa comment section sa Facebook or chat dyan sa YouTube. Ako, ang aking takeaway po is use stories, no? And I believe yan din yung basis ng mga commercials ng mga companies. Tama, Sir Enrico? Di ba?
Correct.
Marami tayong, hanggang ngayon, naalala pa rin natin yung mga kwento na sigurado kang sa Jollibee.
Sigurado ka sa
Tsaka yung
Jollibee ka
oo,
pupunta.
sigurado
Oh,
sa Jollibee
see?
ka pupunta. Yung 'di ba, that's a story na maaalala mo, eh. Hindi lang basta ito yung ito yung Chicken Joy, ito hindi gano'n, eh. It's the story talaga that sticks in the brains of people. So, use stories in your ads, for example, and I believe yung ibang mga companies meron silang mga newsletters din na dini-distribute and yung laman nung newsletters are basically stories ng mga clients nila, 'no, parang client testimony. So, yun din yung pwede nating gawin, 'no? Collate all these client testimonies, put it in a newsletter or in a blog or in an article. And ngayon with social media, maybe yun yung pwede nating i-post every week. Ano ba yung mga stories ng mga kliyente natin, lalo na kapag tayo yung service provider or enabler ng mga companies na yun. Ngayon, kung tayo naman yung producer ng mga products, like may binibenta tayong mga pagkain, maybe bakit siguro yung story would be bakit mo naisip na gawin itong flavor na 'to 'no, or itong variant nito ng pagkain 'no. Yun nga, maganda yung sinabi ni Sir Enrico na kung wala ng ibang story, maybe tell us something about your own story, 'di ba? Paano ka nagsimula sa business mo, bakit ito yung pinasok mong business 'no, and, ano yung mga challenges na ano mo, dahil ah, yun yung interesting ngayon 'no, sa panahon ng social media 'no, and, nung, parang real life stories 'no and challenges. Kasi yung iba nating mga viewers, talagang can relate 'no sa mga ganitong situation. So yan po yung mga importante 'no. Let's build stories or even collate stories from our own and from our clients 'no, dahil itong mga stories na 'to are very powerful in educating our market, or educating our clients 'no, and giving them letting them decide 'no and, reason kung bakit kailangan nila yung products and services mo. Tama ba, Sir Enrico?
Perfect. And in fact, sinabi mo, Eric, this is what I do. Okay? Low-tech lang ako, hindi katulad mo. In my mental folder system, I have stories for different topics. Like Eric
Yes,
Talugdan is a story that I always use, and that's why we always get projects. When I tell them, instead of saying how good he is in creating and developing apps, I tell them, you know what? A couple of years ago, we put up the first
ito yung
SMS
story.
ordering facility. Here's the story. This is what he did. We had a challenge. And remember, I always tell the story with precision because it was my experience, our experience, Eric. And the moment I tell that story, hey, I want to talk to this guy,
Correct.
right?
Yes. And
It's self
pagdating naman oo, and
finished.
pagdating naman sa mindset 'no, yung growth mindset, si Sir Enrico naman yung merong mga stories diyan. Maraming mga stories ng nagte-training kami or kumakain kami sa labas at napag-uusapan yung mga growth mindset 'no, and yung difference ng mga limiting mindset. So, yun naman yung mga stories na nako-collate namin 'no, and yan din yung ginagamit. In fact, nung time na yun, sir, 'di ba, we have a story for every objection. Meron
Correct.
tayong gano'n, nag-collate tayo kasi merong mga parang top 5 objections 'no, when you try to present a business or an opportunity to somebody. So yung ginawa namin ni Sir Enrico was to collate per objection, ano yung story na puwede mong ikuwento, 'di ba? Which
Correct.
is very effective.
Exactly.
Oo,
Lalo na, tapos
yes,
ang gagawin natin, Eric, was, you know what? Don't listen to us. Why don't we, let's hear it from the person that experienced it.
yes,
And
correct,
immediately na dispel lahat yung ano because nga it's a story, 'di ba? And
correct, correct,
nakaka-connect yung tao, talaga ganun ba? Right, 'di
correct,
ba?
correct.
So, yeah, it's really just getting used to it, 'di ba? But we love stories. We watch movies, we watch our own whatever, for some teleserye and what have you, because you can relate to it, 'di ba?
Correct,
And it engages you, and it's so compelling. Kung minsan you're in tears, 'di ba? Or extreme joy. So they make the
yeah,
connection, 'di ba? So it's the same. All you're doing is using the story to communicate your idea, your perspective, your product, your service. Real stories, of course, either ikaw or of another person, 'di ba?
correct, ayan. And next week ang ating topic is nothing is impossible. True? Ayan, konting intro, sir, sa ating topic for next week.
I will talk about, speaking of stories. I watched something last night by chance. I was just, and it popped, and I could not believe what this guy did. It was really what when I said, for that much in 7 months, impossible. Well, that's what we'll talk about. And he himself had his doubts, his challenges. Again, it's just like a typical story. You go, your life improves, and then you have challenges, right? That's the other part of a story. No story starts with "we live happily ever after." Normally, a story starts with a problem, an issue, misery, and then things start to improve, right? But that's another topic altogether. But yeah, you have to hear this story about this man, and you'll think twice about that word impossible. Literally.
That's a good story na didiscuss natin sa susunod na episode. So make sure you subscribe. That's next Saturday, 5 p.m. via Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Ayan. So let's end our episode today with our usual Panatang Makabayan. So let's raise our right hand and bigkasin ang Panatang Makabayan. Iniibig ko ang Pilipinas, aking lupang sinilangan, tahanan ng aking lahi. Kinukupkop ako at tinutulungan upang maging malakas, masipag at marangal. Dahil mahal ko ang Pilipinas, diringgin ko ang payo ng aking mga magulang. Susundin ko ang tuntunin ng lipunan. Tutuparin ko ang tungkulin ng mamayang makabayan. Naglilingkod, nag-aaral at nagdarasal ng buong katapatan. Ialay ko ang aking buhay, pangarap at pagsisikap sa bansang Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po and we'll see you again next Saturday,
Salamat.
5 p.m. dito lang sa Truly Happy Juan.